And currently filming outside because it's rain has stopped and it's a fairly lovely day. Shouldn't be too much external noise apart from some birds and a little bit of a wind chime going on over here. So, top 10 movies. I've got to say, I thought long and hard about my top 10 movies. And yes, I do agree with Grant, they do have to reach inside you. For me as an individual and make me feel something or maybe think differently about the world, or just an enjoyment factor that is intricate specifically to me. And I couldn't narrow it down to 10. 15 was the lowest I could go. I don't think I could get rid of any others apart from that. So, without further ado, and so that this episode isn't nearly an hour long like Ray's was, got to keep these things a bit shorter. Let's begin with in no particular order, apart from the very top 2 or 3, I think. Those things are going to be in order. Everything else is just, these happen to be fantastic movies that I can't not add to this list. So, the 15th movie is Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Big fan of Monty Python in general, I've got to say. Ridiculous, off-the-wall British humour. That, of course, is renowned worldwide. It's a staple of someone who likes comedy. If you don't like Monty Python, no, there's something wrong with you, I think, if you're not amused by the shenanigans that these clowns are up to. And I think the Holy Grail is one of their better ones, with the coconut horses, all the stupid jokes, the killer rabbit, the Black Knight, of course, only a flesh wound. Lots of classic one-liners that people still use today come from a lot of their movies, but a lot come from the Holy Grail. And of course, being Monty Python and a comedy, I'm a big fan of comedy. Hilarious, just funny as hell. I suppose also that my sense of humour is a little bit off the wall, those who know me would say, so Monty Python is a pretty good fit for that, really. Alright, coming in at number 14, we'll go with Young Einstein, an Australian comedy by Yahoo Serious, who had his incredibly brightly burning fireball of a career for that movie, and pretty much that movie alone, followed up with Reckless Kelly, which was lackluster, and Mr. Accident, which really didn't hit any marks for most people. I didn't mind it, and I enjoyed Reckless Kelly, but his career kind of died after those first 3 movies. And hey, he made his money, he made his mark. If he does any more, that'd be great, because it was a unique Australian sense of humour that he added to the Young Einstein film, and a refreshingly original take on the idea of Einstein, and how all the bits and pieces from history and science come together. I liked it. It spoke to me somehow. It was very Australian without being Aussie and ochre. Struth, Bonds of Beauty, True Blue, Fair Dinkum Mate. So yeah, took a little bit from American humour, took a little bit from British humour. That's what we Australians kind of like to do and make it our own. Sometimes the jokes aren't really appreciated worldwide, and Young Einstein really wasn't a big hit globally. It was for a little bit, but really not as big as it was here in Australia. Our own theme park in Movie World had a section devoted to the Young Einstein movie as a little walk-in themed area. So yeah, we really liked that movie, and for me personally, I loved it. At the time as well, I think I was in high school. I did my damnedest to try and grow my hair out in a crazy-ass blonde afro that he had, but sadly my hair doesn't grow very much, and didn't really get anywhere near that. It was just kind of like longish and manky, and I gave up fairly quick on the long hair idea after that, and went to the shortness you see here today. Right. Number 13. Man with Two Brains, Steve Martin. Classic slapstick humor, absolutely hilarious. Ridiculous ideas, off-the-wall comedy, mad scientist, and some excellent ideas using cinematic concepts, but breaking them down. Like, for example, the set of a giant castle actually was a set, and he could punch through the wall. He did punch through the wall specifically to get to the next room. It was supposed to be there as an actual wall, but using comedy, he broke through that and got into things. The door was also made of foam. Little things like that that are normally there to be set up as fake. He revealed for what they were and used it to his advantage in the comedy. Very silly, fabulous early comedy of Steve Martin. Yeah. Big fan of Men Don't Wear Plaid as well. But didn't quite make it to this list, but still a very good movie. Now, what else have we got? Okay, coming in at 12 and 11 respectively, Mel Brooks films. Now, he's done a fair few, and, Robin Hood Men in Tights, High Anxiety, Young Frankenstein is another big favourite of mine with Gene Wilder and Marty Feldman. Quite creepy to the list. Those two would probably be extended down to the 20 mark. For this top 15, I'm limiting it to Spaceballs and Blazing Saddles. Two spectacularly popular comedies that really did make their mark at the time. Taking Mickey out of science fiction and Wild West movies. Again, like Monty Python, a lot of quotes and comedy from those two movies are seen in today's pop culture and vernacular. What they did in Spaceballs, again, similar to the Steve Martin thing, utilising cinematography as a joke. Spectacular. Same with Blazing Saddles. A lot of bursting the fourth wall there with the actors specifically look at the camera and engage with the audience. Very, very funny. And again, I don't know, the way I grew up was, comedy really spoke to me, and being funny was, it's a release. I love to laugh. I love to make people laugh. Nothing's better, in my opinion, than to be enjoying a good comedy and heartily laughing your ass off. And all these movies so far have been doing it for me. They've just been fabulously funny things. Let's see, number 10 I believe we're up to now. Oh, Leslie Nielsen's Naked Gun movies. Fantastic things. Specifically the first one, it was groundbreaking. Up there with Flying High. And again, Flying High I think it'd probably be in the top 20, but not quite into this section. Naked Gun I thought was a little bit better. It just took all those really, really off the wall. Very, very silly, very, very slapstick comedy ideas, and wove them together into a beautiful cinematic format of comedy brilliance. And Leslie Nielsen had the timing down pat to pull all that off. Facial expressions, the body action, everything was just smoothly put together. Really, really groundbreaking stuff. And quite frankly, I think The Naked Gun, as a parody of most of the cop movies and TV series, it came out of a TV series that parodied cop shows. Police Squad, very, very funny. It used some cinematography to utilise it for comedy. One of my favourite parts is the end credits for each and every episode. All of the heroes and characters would, at the end credits, when the credits would roll, freeze. And instead of being a still image where their characters actually froze, and if they were pouring a coffee, it continued being poured out and the cup overflowed. A bad guy who was captured would look around while everyone was frozen in the police headquarters. And he'd get up and leave, but he couldn't leave because he was trapped in that frame. Funny stuff. Naked Gun took that and moved into the movies, and I think it was the groundwork for most of the parodies that have been on cinema since then, like Scary Movie, 1 through to whatever, Date Movie, Superhero Movie, Epic Movie, all of those date movie, all the big parodies so far have been coming out of what's set up in The Naked Gun. There's not a real lot of intelligent comedies, like specifically like Steve Martin's and the Mel Brookses and Monty Python's, that are comedies in and of themselves. There's a lot of parody work. Not to say there isn't any decent comedies come out. I've got a few on this list that are fantastic, but the parodies seem to be the way things are done for the cheap laugh. I've always been disappointed that before Leslie Nielsen passed, they never got around to doing a parody Lord of the Rings and utilised the Harvard Lampoon Lord of the Rings storybook, because that would have been hilarious, and Leslie Nielsen would have made a perfect foil for a comedy Gandalf. Anyway, let's move on. I think we're up to number 9 now over here. Number 9 is Hot Fuzz. Now, of the Cornetto trilogy from Simon Pegg, yes, I like all of his movies. Shaun of the Dead, The World's End, Paul, even though it wasn't part of that lot. Pretty much anything he's turned his hand to, I've enjoyed, and it's been very funny. For me, Hot Fuzz was the pinnacle of the Cornetto trilogy and of his movies. Just the way it was put together, the juxtaposition of what was set up early in the movie, how it played out again in the end, was just beautifully worked, and I really liked that. And all the little nuances in the background as well, which is spectacular. I loved it a lot. At number 8, I think we'll have a little bit of Galaxy Quest, still on the comedy route. Science fiction comedy at its best, taking the mickey out of Star Trek, where Spaceballs did Star Wars. All the fantastic cliches from the series were there. The swaggering captain, ditzy bimbo headphone operator, the kid protege, the alien warrior. The big space battles, everything was set up to beautifully. The red shirt guy who tagged along, didn't realise that in real life he didn't have to die like a red shirt did on Star Trek in the series when he died as a character. You know what I mean, because it was a series set inside a movie. And the mannerisms of the aliens were hilarious. Oh, and the technician, the guy who plays Monk, I love his don't care, roll with that attitude for absolutely everything in the series, in that movie. He doesn't get fazed by being transported through hundreds of light years of space. Nor does he get fazed when he tries to make out with an alien. It turns out to be an octopus creature. He just rolls with that totally. Absolutely brilliant. Really, really good stuff. Loved every second of that. Number 7, Sahara. We've moved away from comedy and into the action adventure. A lot of people don't like Sahara. It really got panned. For me, I really like it. It's just a fun romp of an adventure. Great lines, good action, well paced, good characters. It just, it spoke to me. The way it was put together, it was the way I like to put an action film together. A little bit of tongue in cheek, just enough to make it not dead serious. And it just ran really, really well. And I've got to say that the current Guardians of the Galaxy movie probably would have scraped up into my top 15, definitely in the top 20. It's similar to that. It takes all the superhero, science fiction, action, adventure, comedy, puts it all together with a beautiful 70s, 80s soundtrack. It just works. It really had nailed that. I like all the Marvel movies, but that specifically really seemed to me as a special film. Good adventure. Sahara's the same. I like it. It's just a fun treasure hunt. Number 6 is The Fifth Element. More science fiction coming at you. I really enjoyed The Fifth Element. It was a unique science fiction movie without having to be too, beyond the reach of moviegoers. I've often wondered why things like John Carter of Mars, what was it, sort of steampunk. Films like John Carter of Mars or Wild Wild West, I don't know, audiences, especially American audiences, don't seem to be able to grasp the idea of a science fiction epic set in a separate era with different technology. Despite the fact that steampunk is idiotically popular at the minute, those movies seem to be, I can't enjoy them for what they are, especially John Carter, which was written in the 1800s. And the science fiction technology that was envisioned at that point, which they replicated on the film, was bang on. It was beautiful, it was different, something that we weren't used to. For some reason, it didn't fly. The Fifth Element really nailed that unique science fiction saga thing, and didn't need a sequel. It didn't have to be Star Wars, it didn't have to be Star Trek. It wasn't a James Bond or Indiana Jones ripoff, quite like the Bond and Jones movies themselves. But Fifth Element was just fabulous. Lots of one-liners in that as well that come across pop culture into the vernacular, multipass, things like that. It was just spectacular together, visually impressive, great storyline, fantastic characters and aliens. Fifth Element, it really was a geek fantasy come true. It was fabulous. Now, in at number 5, I was going to put Star Trek First Contact because I really, really like it as a Star Trek movie. It was a little bit darker, which I liked. It had some fantastic action sequences and some really good dialogue in it. The same with Batman Forever. A lot of people didn't like it. I've got to admit, Tommy Lee Jones' Two-Face was a bit crap, but I liked Jim Carrey's Riddler. And all the little nods to the original 60s TV series didn't make it too campy, but they were there. The holy metal Batman, the island is metal, and it's got holes in it. It was funny, and it worked pretty well, but again, not quite cutting the mustard. However, the Lord of the Rings / Hobbit trilogy, big fantasy fan of, especially not fantasy novels. I wish there was more fantasy movies out there with a big epic scale. But I love these movies. They were vast and enormous, and box office has already spoken. They made money like no idea. Spectacular effects, spectacular acting, all the intricate ins and outs that Peter Jackson went to the lengths of to try and get on the screen from the books. It was amazing. So yeah, a giant fan of The Lord of the Rings. Alright, we're into the top 4 now, and this is where things get specific. The rest were just like a mixture of good movies that had no relevance in no particular order. These have an order. At number 4 is Back to the Future, the trilogy. Sensational. Awesome characters, awesome storyline, groundbreaking special effects for the time. It really spoke to me because the whole, time travel thing and setting right what much went wrong. It pushes a lot of buttons, and it pushes a lot of people's buttons. It's still iconic, and it's iconic. All the other movies, they do have their place, but Back to the Future is totally iconic. Talk of hoverboards, everyone knows Back to the Future. 1.21 gigawatts, flux capacitors, crazy scientists with white hair, Doc Brown, DeLoreans. It really nailed it and became part of our culture. And so obviously I'm going to enjoy it as a big giant ass nerd. And it came out when I was just out of high school, so it really appealed to my nerdiness. Now, number 3 over here, Ghostbusters. Obviously I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. Well, those who know me know that. Going through some years of no work and doing it hard, it kind of narrows your focus on all of your nerdisms into the one thing that you really seriously like. And apparently I love Ghostbusters. So I spent a lot of money on getting the Matty Collector props. Still looking for that bloody ghost trap though. It was made in 2009, and before I even knew they were out there. I'm still hopeful. Again, utterly iconic. The logo. Who are you going to call? Slimer. He slimed me. That's a big Twinkie. Egon, Venkman, all the strange names that they used. The whole thing was just gorgeously put together, and one of the most fantastic movies I've ever seen. It was funny. It had a little bit of adventure in it, a little bit of horror. What can I say? Ghostbusters is this classic film. Cinematography done right. So that gets into the pop culture, into the mindset of pretty much everyone. And there you go. Number 2, over here. Superman the movie. The original Superman, Christopher Reeve. None of the new ones, although they are very cool. And in Superman Returns, this mug graces the screen for 5 straight seconds, which I'm pretty happy with. The original Superman was just fantastic. It spoke to me on a nerd level for superheroes. Christopher Reeve as Superman, his acting of that was just, it was just brilliant. He was warm, he was caring, he was a hero, he put himself out for people, he'd always help. And I've tried to put that into my own life. I'd like to help my friends a lot. People, random people on the street. If someone's in need of assistance, I do my best to be the man I can be. And I think that's the underlying what Superman was all about. We'll ignore the fact that, how it should have ended sort of worked out how the movie really should have ended. But it was still a fantastic movie. Again, groundbreaking effects for the day. You will believe a man can fly. Excellent casting, characterization, storyline. Gold. Just gold. Now finally, we get to the #1 spot on my list. You may have noticed a bit of a theme here. Comedy, superheroes, a little bit of action and adventure, science fiction. Is it going to be one of those? Well, totally not. I hate to blow your bubble and burst it all. It's not horror. I'm not a real big fan of horror. I don't mind House on Haunted Hill, the 1990 remake with Jeffrey Rush. Really enjoy that. No, my #1 spot was a bit of a surprise even for me when I watched it. I was seeing something else in an IMAX cinema 22 years ago. And the filler at the beginning was a section of this movie. And just this gorgeous time-lapse shots of stars panning across the heavens. Incredible music, just emotive, sort of semi-classical sort of music. And I had to find out what the hell it was. I spent weeks, this was before the internet, there wasn't a Google. I had to track it down by
a challenge, a warning, a gift, a blessing. Baraka. A cinema experience unlike any other. The power, rage, and essence of life itself.